Welcome to Walpole Five-0. I'm Chief John Carmichael. So before we get into the log today, I just want to talk about a few situations. The first thing is I just want to thank the Junior Women's Club of Walpole once again for bringing in coffee and some donuts and bagels to the police station. And this time they did it on each shift. And I just wanted to pass on our gratitude. All of the officers on every shift really enjoyed that. We much appreciate it, and we always love your support. The Junior Women's Club of Walpole is just an outstanding organization, and they've also been involved with us in getting our foam cars, our foam police cars recently, so we want to thank them for that as well. The Christmas gift collection box. So downstairs in the Walpole Police Department lobby, we have located a gift collection box, and we use that at Christmas time so that we can give presents out to families that are in need. Basically what we do is we look at children that are up to the age of 13, and you can drop those gifts off unwrapped at the police station. Dispatcher Carly Moriarty and Jeff Abady have done an amazing job over the years overseeing this program and providing some very much needed gifts for kids during the holiday season, and we really appreciate everything that Jeff and Carly do, as well as the other members of the Walpole Police Department. If you know of a family that may be in need of assistance at this time, this holiday season, please let us know, and we would love to try and help out with that. It's just great to see how many people have been coming in and dropping off gifts for these children, and very much appreciated, so thank you very much. The Student Police Advisory Council, so this is a group that we started last year, and the Student Police Advisory Council is a group of kids from the high school, basically from freshman up to senior, who have who we look to partner up with. So the police department partnering up with our high school youth. As a police organization, we do a lot of outreach with our elderly population, with our Junior Women's Club and organizations such as that. But what we really found that we were missing is more of a connection with our high school age groups. We do plenty of stuff in the elementary schools and the middle schools, but we wanted to make sure that we keep those partnerships from the middle school going into the high school. So last year we started the Student Police Advisory Council, and we had 25 members of the Student Police Advisory Council last year, and we did all kinds of stuff. We did monthly meetings. We did demonstrations with the Fatal Vision goggles. Every member of Student Police Advisory Council did a ride-along with a police officer out on the street. We talked about every type of issue you can imagine that affect our youth. So drug and alcohol use, school dances, whatever it might be, things that affect youth, we sit down and we talk to them about it. And it's not ever a situation where we want to, it's not investigatory. It is only to develop partnerships and relationships with our kids, and the things that we discuss, what we'd like to see happen is that they go back and they talk about it with their peers. One of the really great things that we did last year was Project Youth, which is part of the Walpole Prisons, or I'm sorry, Cedar Junction, their restorative justice program, and we all went up there and visited the prison, and they took us around, and we got to sit down with inmates that had made some terrible mistakes in their life, and they sat down with our kids and talked about what they did, and they talked about restorative justice and what those inmates planned on doing, when and if they get out of that situation, when they release from incarceration. So it's been a very good program. We know that from the past that this is where we needed to enhance. Like, we needed to partner up better with our high school age kids and our teenagers, and we're really trying to do that. And so I've done a video through Walpole Cable recently, and that was played at the schools. And so far we have about a dozen kids signed up, anywhere between a dozen and 15 signed up so far this year, and we'd like to make sure that we can increase that if we can. And we're going to get going on the Student Police Advisory Council, so we look forward to that, and so do the officers. So, the Drive Sober, Get Pulled Over campaign, I mentioned this last time, but it is still an ongoing effort up and until past New Year's. So December 9th we started it, and it's going to go up to New Year's. This time of year, a lot of holidays, parties, and functions going on, and so we always ask that you please remember to, if you're going to go out to a party or some type of event, make sure that you have a plan. Plan ahead, maybe with a designated driver. Use companies such as Uber or call a cab if you need to. But make the right decision and don't go out and drink and then start to have a few drinks in you and feel that now you're not going to make a good decision and you're going to get in behind the wheel of a motor vehicle and drive home. Because I will get into the fact that we have had several OUI liquor arrests just in the past week, and so we want to make sure that we're keeping the road safe and that people are making good decisions out there. So if you're going to go out, you're going to drink, please make sure that you plan ahead and you don't drink and drive. Drug overdoses. In the past week and a half, we've had 5 drug overdoses. Again, what we're dealing with here in Walpole is a microcosm of what we're dealing with in Norfolk County, the state of Massachusetts, and even regionally the Northeast. We have a severe problem with opiates, heroin, fentanyl, even prescription pharmaceuticals such as oxycodone and hydrocodone, that kind of thing. Again, what we see a lot of times in our overdoses is also a mixture of other drugs, benzodiazepines, which are your Valium type drugs, as well as muscle relaxants, even speed, that type of stuff mixed in with heroin. We're at 29 overdoses so far for 2016. We're higher than we were last year. It's also mirrors what Norfolk County has seen. There's been 150 fatal overdoses in Norfolk County this past year. Walpole's had 29 overdoses and 6 of them have been fatalities. And really, frankly, to be honest with you, if we didn't have quick access to nasal naloxone, either through the fire department, through the police department, or bystander, we would be looking at a lot more fatalities. And again, as this is such an important issue, it's probably our #1 public safety issue, so I can't stress it enough. If a family is in need or a loved one has somebody that's addicted to these drugs, we're here to help you. We have all kinds of resources that we can help out getting somebody into treatment, get them into a detox and try and get them on the right path. And I want to also mention the issue with stigma, because when you're in a community such as Walpole with 25,000 people and you have somebody in your family that might be addicted to a drug, it's difficult to want to come out and bring that out in the open. Because we are a close-knit community. But I want you to know that, especially here at the Walpole Police Department, we're not here to judge anybody. We don't. And we're here to help out if we can, because, the officers do feel good when they save a life. Or I know the firefighters feel good when they save somebody's life, but there's more to this problem, and there's ways that we can help address it. So as I've mentioned before, this department has our resource kits. And we've also joined a SAFE Coalition, which is part of the Rentham District Court for Norfolk County. And the SAFE Coalition puts out these books, What Do We Do Now? And this helps individuals navigate through the issue of addiction if they need help. And these are great books, and there's a lot of good resources in here. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to us, because we're more than willing to help out with this issue and take more of a preventative stance than always responding to it. Marijuana issues. So on Thursday, we're going to legalize marijuana. And we've already had situations in Walpole in the past month or so involving marijuana. We've had issues where vaporizers were used, and inside of the vaporizer was actually THC oils, not the typical over-the-counter stuff that you would buy in a store for smoking with a vaporizer. We've had issues with ziti, Alfredo, with THC, cooked in can of butter or can of oils. Issues with THC lollipops that we recovered during a search warrant. We've had issues with chocolate pretzels and that type of edible containing THC products. We've had issues with marijuana sales among youth in the town. And we've had a situation where we had a robbery where an individual ordered up an ounce of marijuana from somebody, and when 3 individuals went to bring that marijuana to the individual and deliver it, he pulled a firearm and robbed the individuals of the marijuana. So this is a very serious public safety issue, it's a public health issue as well, because on Thursday, when the floodgates open and this legalization thing starts to kick in, we increase access and availability of these drugs to our youth. And I plan on doing a lot of public education in Walpole, as I've done in the past and as this department's done in the past, to try and educate our community on the dangers of this stuff. I have brought a few things today just to show. This is the issue with, this is 1 ounce of marijuana right here. 1 ounce. This is worth $250 to $400 an ounce on the and for this ounce on the street. That's why somebody would go as far as ordering this type of commodity and having somebody deliver it to them and then pulling a firearm and robbing them, because it's worth a lot of money. This is worth, like as I said, $250 to $400. Now, when you under legalization, when you can have 10 ounces of this, you're now talking $2,500 to $4,000 for 10 ounces of it. So it is still going to be an issue, a public safety issue that we're going to have to address. These other items are edibles, and we have gummy bears, we have brownies, we have just basically these are called Chiba Chews, and this is just a chocolate bar. Now, the problem with these items is each one of these items has 18 to 30% THC levels in them. THC is a psychoactive component in marijuana that causes the high. These have very high THC levels in it, much, much higher than the marijuana that we had years ago. And the other thing is these products they come in 10 milligram servings. So these gummy bears, there's 10 gummy bears in this particular package. There's 100 milligrams in this one bottle, but one serving is 10 milligrams. So that's one gummy bear. So what happens is people will access this, and if they don't know the potency of these drugs, they'll take multiple servings of it. So you have an individual that may take 4 of these, and now you've consumed 4 milligrams of THC instead of the 10 milligrams that a typical person may use in order to get high. So a lot of concerns with this. We have to teach our kids about these items. They're going to end up in the hands of our youth, and our kids are going to end up in the hospital. And so it's really going to be a push through our coalition and through the police department to really try and educate the community on these things and educate our kids so that they're not harmed in any way. So off the soapbox for that one. But some marijuana issues and one other thing just to throw in there is the overdose issue that we're having. If you go back in their drug use history, a lot of times it's addiction that starts with early onset. So early onset use that's ultimately led to this addiction that they're in now with opiates. And these products, this marijuana and THC, are the types of products that have easy access to when kids are younger and when they initiate to drugs, and that's why I'm so concerned with it. So we want to talk about the car breaks. We have had more car breaks in the past couple of weeks. These car breaks have started in early November, and they've really become a nuisance in Walpole because at one point they were just concentrated to North Walpole, then they kind of shifted over to East Walpole, and we've had probably reported incidents, over 25 situations where motor vehicles have been broken into. And when I say broken into, I mean the doors were open, but a person entered in and they stole items and personal belongings of the victims. Well, I'm happy to say today that we have identified a suspect, and as we speak right now, our detectives are working that case, and we've already recovered a lot of evidence that is linked to the crimes in Walpole. And I just want to say that Detective Sergeant Kilroy, Detective Ian Tolan, Detective Tim Sullivan, Detective Jackie Hazeldine, all of our officers on the midnight shift and the 4 to 12 especially have been really working very diligently to try and identify who's been breaking into the cars in Walpole. And I can assure you that we feel very strongly that we've identified that individual, and he doesn't know it yet, but he'll be paying a visit here pretty soon. So I can't get into it much more right now because we're not at that point yet, but I am very proud of the efforts that the officers put in. They took this seriously, and now we're going to be able to have enough to make an arrest on the individual that's responsible for the car breaks in Walpole. So great job there. Shots fired call. This is about a week and a half ago. We responded to the Econo Lodge, located right at the Walpole-Sharon line on Common Street. I'm not going to get into a lot of the specifics of this investigation because there has been an arrest made of an individual from Brockton who was involved in the shooting. And that individual is also involved in possible other shootings, as well as a home invasion that occurred in Brockton with an elderly gentleman a couple of weeks ago, where they beat this individual and they tied him up and that sort of thing. So very violent individual with a past history was involved in this incident at the Econo Lodge. There was shots fired there. Walpole officers responded, and we worked very closely with Sharon PD as well as State Police to help secure that crime scene up there and get out be on the lookout for the vehicles that were involved in the situation. There was a firearm that once these individuals fled from the Econo Lodge, they got onto Common Street, came into Walpole, and they discarded a firearm in the area of Common Street after they had fled. And we did recover a 9mm that was loaded. Several rounds had been discharged from that firearm. There were shell casings that were recovered at the scene where this occurred. And what we didn't tell the press at the time was that our officers, Walpole police officers who were working details on Route 1, we were looking for a black pickup truck. That black pickup truck was observed by 2 of our officers on Route 1, and they were able to get a registration plate which tied that vehicle back to a rental company out of New Bedford. And through this investigation, we were able to work with Sharon to pass this on, and Sharon and Brockton PD as well as State Police were able to link that vehicle back to several individuals, one of which was placed under arrest as being the shooter. So just an amazing job by everybody there. All of the officers worked very well together, and you know, this is one of those situations where we're just glad that this is a dangerous individual right at our back door that was placed under arrest now and taken off the street. So very happy to report that. One more thing on that. So the schools wanted to modify lockdown when that happened, and you know, I gave that order from the scene when we were up there. We don't want our kids outside. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, the Boyden School, the high school, Bird Middle School, the schools that were closest to the area where this truck had fled, we knew that it left and it went on Common Street, but from that point on, we weren't sure where that vehicle went. So we want a modified lockdown, which basically, working with the schools, meant that we pulled all the kids in from recesses or any outdoor activity, brought them inside the school, locked down the front of the school, and you know, they were still freely able to move around inside the school. But right after this happened, we immediately sent officers, either plainclothes or marked units, to our schools so that they could kind of safeguard that area, just in the event that the individuals had gone that way. Not that there was ever any threat to the school, but that at least we had that covered. So that's why we did that. And then, you know, by the end of the day, we were very confident actually that vehicle had left the area, and there was no threat to Walpole at that point. So suspicious activity, this was kind of a situation but shows what happens with our resources. We had a report of a large amount of blood that had been accumulated and smeared in an area, in a location in East Walpole, and officers on the 4 to 12 shift responded down there, and it did look very suspicious. There was a lot of blood lost. There was blood that was smeared on a fence and on a lamppost down there that really did look like something violent could have taken place. So, not having much information, the officers started to do knock and talks in the neighborhood, going up and alerting residents, but also seeing if they saw or heard anything. We called area hospitals. We called out a canine. The canine came out and tracked from the area where that blood was located to Bird Pond, which was very concerning because we felt that that person could have gone near the pond or fallen into the pond. And we pulled in a lot of assets. We called in, the fire department came in with the thermal imaging unit. The state police came out with a couple of canines, as well as the air wing. So if you remember, on that night, the helicopter was flying around East Walpole late, like after midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And that helicopter, the air wing, was basically hovering over Bird Pond looking to see if there possibly could have been somebody in the water. And the air wing was able to dispel the fact that anybody was in the water. One of the other canines came in, ended up actually tracking kind of in a different direction than where the first dog had tracked. So we kind of figured that maybe the person didn't go near the water. Well, it turns out that this was, there was no crime or anything committed, but then an individual had fallen earlier in the night, struck their head, and that there was, you know, obviously the presence of blood because of that injury, and that person was transported to the hospital by another individual, not through our ambulance. And so we called back the hospital and just to let them know that, you know, we used all these resources to look for this person, and, you know, it was kind of an oversight at the hospital that an individual had been transported there with a head injury, and that was related to this specific incident. But in the end, I guess that's the best case scenario, that the person was okay, that they were transported to the hospital and they were treated for the injuries that they had, and nothing more serious happened. So we're happy for that. Suspicious person arrest on Route 1 on High Plains Street. So this individual was walking on High Plains Street, but he had been causing some issues at some of the businesses up there. So we got some calls on it. The officers went up, and they identified a homeless individual who had just kind of been wandering around. And during their field interview and observation of this individual, he became belligerent. The officers were able to identify him. When they were trying to identify him, they found out that he had 3 active default warrants out of Boston. And as a result, he was placed under arrest. During that time, he also became disorderly and was had the additional charge of being a disorderly person added on to his arrest for the default warrants. Officers Vince Aguirre and Giblin were involved in that incident, and they did a great job. 2 of our newest officers, and which I'd like to actually bring up, Officer Vince Aguirre and Officer Giblin and Officer Powers, our newest officers who just graduated from the police academy back in September, and now off their field training program, and we're very happy about that. So they're off the field training. Officer O'Connor is also off his field training, and so we have 4 new officers that are out there fully trained and ready to go, and it's been a long 9 or 10 months since they went into the academy, and they're ready to get out there on the street. So very happy for that. So the OPR Gingerbread Festival, I just want to thank the OPR PAC for inviting us to the OPR Gingerbread Festival. Officers Benna, Powers, and Hart went up there, and they got to take a ride on the hayride and spend some time with some of the OPR kids and the gingerbread man. So we happy the officers got to do that. And, you know, these are the types of things that I, as a chief, you know, I really appreciate our officers, because, you know, they've really embraced community policing, and, you know, these are the types of things that these officers will just get out and do. If they have the spare time and they have the free time during their shift, you know, they try and get out and spend some time engaged in the community. And, you know, these guys went up there and they did that, and I'm very proud of them for doing it. And I'm sure the community is as well. We responded to a fight. This was at the intersection of Coney and Pleasant Street. There was 1 vehicle involved and an individual on foot. We don't really know what happened with this yet, but 1 individual was on foot. There was mutual combatants, so some individual that was in the motor vehicle and this guy that was walking. And somehow they crossed paths, 2 guys crossed paths and ended up in a fight in the middle of Coney Street and Pleasant. And we still don't know why, because the 1 vehicle involved fled the scene. The other individual walked off on foot. However, he was not cooperative with the interview by the police officers. He wasn't interested in seeking charges, and this is one of those, you know, dust them both off and send them on their way. You know, they don't want anything to do with it, and that's fine. So that situation there was kind of unresolved pretty much, but both individuals sent on their way. We did a warrant sweep on December 5th. So as I mentioned before, we've had, and we can have anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 warrants in the system at any given time. Officer Crown and Bethany came in early one day on December 5th, and they tried to do like a mini warrant sweep where they went out and tried to arrest, as ordered by the court, individuals that have active default warrants or straight warrants. During that warrant sweep, they were able to locate one individual who was placed under arrest for the warrant and ultimately transported to Rentham District Court. Landlord complaint. This complaint is from a landlord that they have a tenant that's always smoking pot in their room and annoying other people in the building. So this is actually a quite common occurrence that we deal with, especially in apartment buildings and that kind of thing. So here's the deal on that. Medical marijuana, you can't limit it, because with medical marijuana, it's now treated as almost as a prescription. It's not a prescription, but if they have a medical marijuana card and they live in an apartment building, they can use medical marijuana. And that includes the smoked forms, and that includes the edibles such as what I demonstrated earlier. The only time that the police can actually help the landlord take action with these cases is if we can show that the person smoking the marijuana is specifically harming someone else's health. So there's somebody else that's in the apartment building, and you're harming that person's health. And that might be as little as it's secondhand smoke and you're inhaling it, that kind of thing, or it's coming into your apartment and you have little kids there that are being exposed to it. But in any event, it's not in the statute that, you know, you can just enforce it that way. So we usually come as a peacekeeping type of mechanism on those types of calls. Now, with recreational forms, landlords can ban smoked forms of marijuana written right into the statute. It can be written into their lease agreements. If it's federal housing, it's Section 8 or anything like that, it's already federally prohibited, so they can't use it. But you know, this is just one of those unintended consequences of medical marijuana and legalization that, you know, there's only so much the police can do with these situations. But we try and help out and keep the peace and that sort of thing. So, and that is only the tip of the iceberg for probably what's to come. Unwanted persons. So Officer Powers and Officer Benner went to LA Fitness for an unwanted party. The individual was not allowed on the property because the gym had revoked his membership, but he was still coming in playing basketball. So the officers showed the staff how to do a letter of disinvite, which was given to that individual not to return to that premises, and if he does, then he could be placed under arrest for trespassing. It's basically a letter of disinvite is just a written notice from the property owner or the manager saying that, you know, you're no longer welcome on the property, and that's kind of what happened in this case. Multiple domestic disturbances. You know, this time of year, a lot of you know, boyfriend-girlfriend issues and that kind of thing. I don't get into it, but you know, this type of year, we do have some victims that have been involved in these types of things, and you know, we're always here to try and quell those situations as best possible. But we don't really get into it. We don't, under mass law now, we don't put domestic disturbances and that kind of thing into our log or identify people involved in it, basically to protect both the privacy of the victim and families and that kind of thing. So that's why that law was passed. So, but you know, they occur, and it's a very unfortunate thing, and we do try very hard to advocate for the victims in these cases. So OUI liquor, we have had multiple OUI liquor arrests in the past couple of weeks. One individual, that we actually got a call on this one. The vehicle was running and the operator was passed out behind the wheel. This was over by the municipal lot, and there was fresh damage and paint transfer on that vehicle, which we were able to trace back to a motor vehicle crash, hit and run type of situation. because the person had been drinking, struck something and chose not to stop and make themselves known, and instead drove away and ultimately ended up passing out at the wheel anyways and came across the police in a different way. So we've had multiple other OUIs, OUI alcohol, unlicensed operation, as well as an open bottle. That was Officer Bieberman. The other one was by Officer Haber. Another individual that was arrested following a single car crash on Baker Street by Washington Street. And again, it's a very dangerous mix, drinking and driving. And as we like to mention again, have a plan. Get a plan in place before you go out and you go to some of these Christmas parties and these events. And we have Uber out there. You can call Uber and you can get home nice and safely, or a designated driver, call a cab, whatever you have to do. But have some plan in place first, because we are out there more right now because of the grant that we're working on, and officers are out there on 4-hour shifts to try and deal with drinking and driving. So we executed a search warrant on Norfolk Street, 43 Norfolk Street. There was 3 individuals that were arrested there. This was part of our drug task force. Our 2 drug detectives here at the Walpole PD, as well as NORPAC, which is the Norfolk County Police Anti-Crime Task Force. That's the drug task force that Walpole is a part of. It's 15 agencies, and we work very closely with Boston Drug Control Unit and DEA and the rest of other departments in Norfolk County. 15 agencies involved in our task force. But we had information that this individual had moved into Walpole recently and was the target of an investigation in the other community where he came from, that there was possible drug dealing that involves crystal methamphetamine and some other drugs. So immediately after they moved into Walpole, we began an investigation through our drug task force and through the efforts of our Walpole detectives, and they were able to establish enough probable cause to get a search warrant. We executed that search warrant on December 6th, and when we went in, we did recover items and paraphernalia related to crack cocaine, as well as methamphetamine, crystal methamphetamine, and also we recovered some Suboxone, which is basically a drug used to help people addicted to opiates. So a great job with the officers on that. This is a case also where neighbors and people started to know kind of right off the bat there was a little bit of suspicious activity going on, and those neighbors worked with officers as well to get this out of their neighborhood. And that's one thing that's really great about Walpole is we will work very closely with people who see these things taking place, and they'll work with us so that we can keep it out of Walpole. So the next day, on December 7th, there was drug activity in East Walpole. This stemmed from another drug investigation that we had worked in the past couple of months. And what happened was there was some displacement, like this dealer had been possibly involved with other individuals selling drugs in Walpole, and it moved the location. So we were still on to this, but this particular incident, we had our residents that were seeing this suspicious activity taking place. And they were able to call us, and they were able to work with our detectives and articulate exactly what they were seeing, and giving us the ability to be able to establish enough reasonable suspicion and or probable cause that there's a crime being committed, and our officers were able to engage these 2 individuals in East Walpole, and they placed the 2 individuals under arrest for possession of Class A, which is heroin, and possession of Class B, which is cocaine, and as well as conspiracy, because there's a conspiracy between the 2 individuals to violate our drug laws in Massachusetts. So they were also charged with that. But we did recover a amount of heroin and cocaine, and it was upwards of I don't recall the exact amount, but it was upwards of about 10 to 12 grams of heroin and cocaine. Now that's just short of trafficking weight, because now in Massachusetts, after we had some amendments to our drug laws, we raised the amount of drugs for heroin and cocaine up to 18 grams to be trafficking weight, and it used to be 14 grams, so they moved that up. Still short of the trafficking weight, but there was plenty enough to charge these individuals with possession with intent to distribute Class A and Class B. So very good. They also, detectives and officers, recovered transaction logs and $500 in cash. Now, this drug dealer is from Fitchburg, so he's a drug runner, which probably is likely that this individual is a runner for a drug organization out in Fitchburg that deals to this area, and we see this a lot. And you know, what we do is we pick off these runners as much as we can, and sometimes we're lucky enough to be able to get back to where the source is coming from as well. But you know, this sends a message that, you know, we're not going to allow this type of activity to happen in Walpole. It does happen, but we're going to be relentless in trying to deal with it. And again, as I mentioned, we're very lucky that the community of Walpole and our citizens are very vigilant in seeing this stuff, and they see things out of place in the neighborhood, calling us so that we can help and work with them to deal with it. So another situation, on December 9th, there was an arrest of a 27-year-old male for Class A heroin. This was a well-being check that was called into the police department. Somebody saw this individual appeared to be passed out and nodding off, and the officers responded there and found out that this individual had very pinpoint pupils, was passed out and nodding off at the wheel as they were sitting in this motor vehicle, and as a result, an exit order was given to them, and there was a syringe and drug paraphernalia, i.e. heroin, located inside of that motor vehicle. And that individual was arrested. Now, we do many times try to avoid arrest if we can, especially with a user. This person's not a drug dealer, they're a drug user, they're addicted to that drug. We'll try and give them resources. But this is also a case, this is, you know, this is a little higher of a problem, because this individual in a motor vehicle, and they're behind the wheel, and they're nodding off, and the pinpoint pupils, so that, you know, they had to get there somehow, and you know, they probably drove while drugged, and that can be a major problem. So this individual was placed under arrest and kind of dealt with in that manner. But you know, the nodding off, sometimes people will call us because when they're under the influence of opiates, whether it be heroin or prescription pharmaceuticals, even fentanyl, any of those types of drugs, people will nod off. They'll start to almost like fall asleep right in front of you. Their eyes will be very pinpoint and glassed over and glazed over. So there is some very significant physical indicators that people display when they're under the influence of a drug like heroin. And this person certainly did that. And people that were in that parking lot noticed that and reported it to us. So thank you very much. Disturbance, a rowdy group of teens threw glass at a customer up at a Route 1 location. The officers responded, but that individual was gone on arrival. These are kind of all the larceny cases we start having to come in this time of year. Larceny of a television at a Route 1 location. That individual was also able to get away. We got a description of them, photograph of them, and a vehicle, a likely vehicle involved, but we have not located that person as of yet. Also, larceny of a laptop that was also in a store on Route 1. And one issue that we had on Summer Street was the railroad crossing lights malfunctioning. And as we know, we have this situation with the push from the DOT to bring the train out to Gillette Stadium. And this is obviously, there's already problems there with the Summer Street crossing, the railroad crossing lights malfunctioning, and the officers were tied up there for a while directing traffic and having to get traffic across the railroad crossing because there was nothing coming. There was no train on the tracks, but for some reason the lights and everything were activated and malfunctioning, so they had to wait for personnel to get out there and fix that situation. So And so that's it for today. I just want to say thank you very much again, and I look forward to seeing you next time.